And we're at the speed down to 2,500.
Good point. Wherever you reduce speed to 180.
BlackBox.
Okay. Hey, welcome back, folks. Kenny Porter here, KP's Black Box. Today, I have a special guest with us, Mr. Chris Aldis, who's a fellow veteran and fellow sailor. And I have to say fellow sailor because as a Marine, we were Department of the Navy.
I know, the men's
department.
Right? Yeah,
Oh,
you're coming up with
you knew it was coming,
I
right?
did it for 30 years.
You know it.
Yeah.
You know it. The Master Chief here, Command Master Chief, is going to have me doing push-ups in a few minutes if I don't behave. But Chris, great to have you on the show. Our mutual friend, Travell Baker, introduced us and said, man, you've got to interview Chris. He's doing some great things. He's got a great program, Man Camp.
Yes, sir.
That we'll talk about that and probably try to spend as much time as you want to on that today.
Yeah.
Because I think serving men in our community and getting the head trash, right?
Exactly.
Out
yeah.
and getting people back on a solid, positive course moving forward in their life. So I'm excited to hear about that. Being fellow veterans, I was sharing with you off camera that one of the things we like to do just to start out each show is just to do a toast to those that have served and those that have given all and those that are still giving it all. We toast them and we appreciate them. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Semper
Cheers.
Fi, shipmate.
Semper Fi. Nothing like Johnny Walker on an empty stomach early in the morning, right?
Yeah,
So-
that's good. Should settle everything, though.
Yeah, I mean, now it'll be cool, calm, collected.
That's
but
tasty. I love that stuff.
yeah, it's very good. It can be a demon for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But I have usually we try to do a podcast on Fridays. We made a special day for you, sir. But, when we do that toast, it really does kind of set the stage for me because it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes as a host, and I got to draw all the goodness out of you and get it on camera in about an hour's time. So
Yeah, I can imagine
that can help.
Yeah, trying to do that. It's just, there's some anxiety that comes up with it, but, you've been doing this a while, right?
Yeah, yeah. Pull your, if you would, just pull your mic in on the. There you go. And hear you a little better.
All right.
Maybe if I turn my volume up too, right, Jordan?
Okay.
That's perfect right there. So, Chris, take me back, if you would, to young men when you decided to enlist. Where are you from, and how'd you end up in the Navy?
All right. Well, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Motor City.
Yeah, and we lived in. First of all, I didn't know Detroit was a bad place till I left it. I just thought that's the way the world was. So I had started college, graduated high school, started college at University of Michigan, was bartending and driving a limousine to pay for stuff, and I had 7 kids in my family, so my mom and dad didn't, they couldn't afford it. I was the first one to go to college. I was number 5 of 7 kids too. Got into college and was having a great time in the mid-'80s as a bartender, as you can probably imagine. Then after 4 years of college, I had accrued about 40 credit hours. Started off my first semester, I had 18. So you can see that it went downhill from there. I was having too much fun. I finally decided I got to do something.
Yeah.
Got in a car wreck. Somebody just ran into me with an International Scout pickup, just a tank.
Oh, yeah.
And he drove away and left us
Coolest
there.
thing.
And I said, okay, I got to do something. I'm doing too much stuff. I was, putting a lot of my money up my nose. I was always physically fit and everything, but I'm not doing anything. My buddy had just joined as an officer, so I went with him one day and talked to a recruiter, and I said, I want something medical. They said, we have hospital corpsman. You'd be perfect for that. Took the test. They said, you can do whatever you want in the Navy. I scored real high in the ASVAB. Joined the Navy in '88 and left Detroit and never looked back.
Wow.
Became a corpsman. My first patient actually died during course school when I was in clinical. Very first patient, yeah. So I guess that should have set the stage for kind of what was going to go on later on. But then I ended up spending 30 years in the Navy, made it through, went through, after my first tour, I went to the Field Medical Training Battalion in Camp Lejeune to learn to be a corpsman with the Marines.
Right.
And then I spent the next, out of 30 years, 17 years with the Marines. So absolutely loved it. And
I'm sorry, and thank you.
No. I wouldn't do it any other way, Kenny. It was special. I mean,
Marines are special. That's
that's a good way to say it and a bad way to say it. Marines are special. So.
Well, special in how they eat crayons. Special in that it's a unique core group of folks. It's a unique fraternity to be a part of.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, favorite duty station. So you went to boot camp in San Diego. I mean, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. You probably didn't understand it as beautiful during boot camp, but I think you told me one of your last duty stations before you moved back to Virginia was Hawaii.
Yeah.
Favorite duty station in the Navy?
The number one favorite was when I was Command Master Chief of Marine Forces Pacific, U.S. Marine Forces Pacific, working for a couple outstanding 3-star Marine Corps generals during the time. One in particular is Guts, was his call sign. Wonderful guy. It was amazing to be Command Master Chief of that. So I had the Sergeant Major was my battle buddy, and I was Command Master Chief, so the boss had 2 senior enlisted leaders to advise him, and we were just, we'd been together in combat before out in Afghanistan, he and I, and the Sergeant Major, and we just clicked. We had a great time, traveled all over the Pacific. I got to do put a lot of influence into the Fleet Marine Force side, the Navy side of the Fleet Marine Force, and put some policies and stuff in place and really helped some people. And then it also cemented my reputation as a leader. So I think that was probably, and then of course my family got to live in, my wife kind of grew up in Hawaii. Her father was Air Force. So when she said, hey, let's take these orders, she was excited for my kids to grow up like she grew up.
Yeah.
So Marine Force Pacific was probably my favorite.
Yeah, which island is that?
That's on Oahu.
Oahu.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I think I heard you say you spent some time in the beautiful country of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Which pictures, I've never been personally, but, buddies who have deployed and some Marines and SEAL buddies, seeing photos, it looks like it could be a ski resort in some areas.
Some areas, yeah.
Obviously, I know Kabul's a little messy, but where out in the reaches of Afghanistan did you go?
So at that time I was the Command Master Chief for 2nd Marine Division forward, and we were in the Helmand River Valley. All of Helmand Province was our area of operation.
That was a hotbed for a while, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was hot when we were there too. We ended up losing about 83 Marines, had about 1,900 seriously wounded with amputations and things like that. So
because of IEDs?
Yeah.
That was their number one way just to screw with your head more than anything, right?
Well, and they had a lot of support from, not to be political, but when our President Trump dropped that missile on Soleimani's forehead, that's the guy that provided from Iraq or Iran. He provided them with all the technology and the stuff. So when that happened, I saw a lot of people that it's going to be World War III. I was like, that guy needed to go. That was just, he's the one that killed all my buddies and Marines and injured them all. So, I had no love lost on that. So, so it was pretty hectic out there. Upper Sangin Valley was really hot at the time.
Yeah.
If you heard the Dark Horse Battalion, I can't remember.
Right.
They when we got there, they had lost day after day for almost a full month. Had people KIA. So it was just, difficult time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, leading corpsmen who are working alongside of Marines and, folks forget sometimes that in the Marine Corps, the average age of an infantry Marine anyway is like 19 years old.
Right.
And I would guess that corpsmen are probably average age is probably
about the same,
19.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So these guys are seeing some pretty brutal stuff at very young ages. A male's mind hasn't fully developed, from my understanding, until about 25 years old.
Right.
So.
And that's under normal circumstances.
Under normal circumstances, yeah. So the carnage and just the what back in my day we called it the fog of war. You know, today I think we refer to it more as, or shell shock was what I
Yeah.
grew up with, and now PTSD.
Right.
I'm sure you saw your fair share of that, and
Yeah, the hardest part about I think what you're talking about there for me was, you know, I'd come up through the ranks as a corpsman with the Marines, so I was always involved, a platoon Marine, a platoon corpsman with the
Yeah.
Marines. Being where I was at that time, I was over all of them, and it was my responsibility to train and equip and do all
you're
this
the,
stuff.
you're the doc.
Yeah, but you know, and I was the guy that was advising the general who was in charge of the whole operating area, telling him what we needed to do, and then they had commanders, Navy commanders and stuff who were the surgeon and everything, actually coming to me and saying, "Hey, this is what I need from the boss, and this is what you got to work this." So seeing those, the best thing though is, when we got there, we would go out and into, you know, outside the wire, we call it, and head out wherever we were going to visit, whatever unit. And you know, since it was so hot at that time, I mean, hot in terms of combat, had a lot going on. But my corpsmen, and that's selfish calling them my corpsmen, but they're my corpsmen in my mind. When I would go to the hospital that was right there on Camp Leatherneck, where our main the headquarters was.
Yeah.
We would go to the hospital every single night. Here's how our day went. We would wake up in the morning, eat breakfast together as a command staff, go into a morning meeting. Me and the general and the sergeant major and the aide, general's aide, would hop on a helicopter and go fly someplace, and then go out with a unit someplace. When we got back, we would have some meetings, work out, all that stuff. In the evening, we'd go to dinner, ops intel meeting. Then we would go to the flight line for why it slipped in my mind, the dignified transfer of anyone who was killed. We would leave the flight line after that dignified transfer. I don't know if you ever seen it, flag draped coffins, all that stuff. We'd be standing by. We would leave there, go to the hospital to go visit all the wounded Marines and sailors who were pretty much multiple amputees, and young guys who had had their legs and testicles and arms blown off. And we would then come back from that and then have to finish up all our emails and stuff. But when I was in that hospital, every time we found that there was ticks going on, troops in contact with the enemy, and they would say, we'd get the word that there's injuries. If I was available, I'd shoot over to the hospital when they came in. And every time, or I would get there right after 6 hours of surgery for someone, and the surgeon would walk out, blood on him and everything, and he'd see me, he'd say, "I don't know what you're teaching these corpsmen, but this guy came in multiple above the knee amputations, shrapnel up into his peritoneum, you know, up through him, testicles, penis blown off, and arm missing, and lung collapse." And this corpsman, whatever these corpsmen did, they had him patched up and stopped all the bleeding and stopped everything in a matter of minutes and had him packaged. And they actually eliminated what we used to talk about as the golden hour. You had to get him better in an hour.
Yeah.
They would have them packaged up. These surgeons would tell me, "I don't know what you're teaching them, but
Yeah.
they're saving lives. We're not."
Wow.
So that's the part for me, was seeing, you know, what our efforts, what the end result of it was. These guys, and I say guys because there's only male corpsmen out in the combat zone there with the infantry. There's females and other stuff, but these guys were out there just doing it. They could put tourniquets on in a matter of under a minute. They could tourniquet 2 legs in 2 minutes, stop all these other bleeds in a matter of 5. And on top of that, they trained their Marines how to do it too. So,
Yeah. That just sobering. Thanks for sharing that. I saw, from my time from 90 to 99, it was a very peaceful time, I would say, considering from 2000 forward what we were faced with as a country. I was in during a period where, you know, the worst that I saw was in Haiti,
yeah.
and you know watching
That was pretty
people-
bad. That was pretty bad, though. I remember that time.
you know,
frame, too.
just the human beings dying, you know,
Yeah.
because of a war-torn country, and self-inflicted bad behavior.
Yeah.
But one of the most sobering tours that I went on, my father-in-law used to be the at the National Naval Medical
Right.
Center. And so these troops and these Marines that you're describing that made it back home, on the 6th floor was their recovery ward. I think it was the 6th floor of Bethesda.
Right.
And my father-in-law had me walk through and do a tour with him and a Marine Corps general.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be in town with my family that week visiting. He's like, hey, I want you to see the level of care these guys are getting. I think what folks still don't appreciate and understand, Chris, is that the advancement in field medicine, what you did as a corpsman, what your troops did as corpsmen to save lives is just, it's
Unfathomable.
unfathomable.
They can't. People don't understand it.
And I mean, the level of care that was given to these guys, and still given to these guys that are, coming home with injuries. I'm just eternally grateful to our country and for men and women who've served in whatever capacity in the military, especially those that had to go through combat or see combat.
Amen.
And live with combat.
And live with the guilt of surviving it too. That's one of the big things too. So.
Yeah, which is why suicide in the Army, I think, is still unfortunately leading in that area where, what are we, 20, is it 20?
I've heard 22 a day, but
Too many.
yeah, well, one too many every day.
One too many.
Yeah.
But again, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I know it's tough to share, and it, maybe can open some old wounds. Don't want to.
It's easier now. It was difficult for a long time, but saying that, opening old wounds, I think that some of the things that I've done and some of the people that I've connected with, and then doing something like this with you, we got to talk about it. We got to talk about things so that you can talk about them without tearing up. It took me a long time. I've been retired for 4 years now. I was in Afghanistan all of 2011. From 2012 on, the national anthem would play, and I would not just cry. I would be broken for a long time.
Yeah.
But so you got to just get into the right realm, get into the right projects, do something. Servant leadership is part of not only just serving others, but also taking care of yourself too.
Yeah.
So you got to figure those things out, and that's.
Yeah. So servant leadership, we're going to fast forward, and maybe we'll come back and pick up some of the Navy career stuff. But I know something that's near and dear to your heart is talking about man camp.
Yes.
So I'm sure some of the inspiration of good and bad that came from your naval career launched you in creating this man camp environment. So if you would, share with our audience a little bit about man camp.
Kenny, I appreciate you just bringing that up. And I didn't intend to lead you into that. I hope I appreciate you bringing
Good
that.
segue.
Yeah, thanks, man. See, you're a natural host. You said you're worried about it, but no. So man camp. My buddy Bill Harris, he's a retired Surface Force independent duty corpsman, special ops. Spent his last 6 years with Dev Group. Some people know that as SEAL Team 6. Bill came out of that, and it's weird. At the same time, he and I were going through. I had to spend 5 weeks in an intensive outpatient program, behavioral health out in Tripler. I crashed and I just broke down and couldn't do my job as command mass chief where I was at the health clinic at the time. We were both going through something at the same time, and he and I had been friends back in the 90s, played softball together, worked together. We're just really close. We coached boys baseball together. He contacted me, and he's like, I just want you to join this other group we're doing, but I also have this I want to develop something, and I'm thinking about serving men, especially starting with veterans, but then also reaching out because men are hurting across the board in America. So Bill talked to me about it. He was working on it, didn't have just something was just so I just said, hey, I'll be your wingman, man. Let's do this together. We did our first man camp in February of 2021, in the mountains of western Pennsylvania, 5 inches of snow, 20 degrees. People came out there, slept in tents, froze, put this thing together where we just do a non-clinical, it's like 3 or 4 day session. We do manly things like axe throwing and starting fires and living out in the woods, but we also sit down and do things like, let's talk about things. Let's be transparent. Let's be authentic. Come to us. If you know, we do this thing called a River of Life. It's done a lot in a lot of veteran type clinical and non-clinical programs to help them get through, where they talk about your life and you make these marks along this river that you draw and how it affected you like this. You may not think, you think back to when you were 12 and you're like, something happened back then that really changed the trajectory of my life. But you never really thought about how that affected your life as an adult.
Right.
Then you realize,
Yeah.
we've had people come in and say, hey, you know, I was abused from the age of 8 till 12 by my grandparents who were physically, sexually abused. They'd come up and open up and say this. I had people say, you know, I've hurt people very badly. I mean, they just come out with stuff. When men get together and talk and are authentic and they feel safe and they feel like they're in a circle of men who nothing's going to hurt them and they feel secure in that and know that those men have their back and also they're not judging them,
Yeah.
men open up about the things that are killing them inside. And when I say killing them inside, most men are like, I have to keep it inside because, you know, boys don't cry.
Yeah.
I can't open up to this. So we've set up this man camp. This is now going to be our 5th iteration. Next week, as a matter of fact. We got right now we've got 5 new guys coming and about 10 people that are alumni, cadre people that are there to help. And we get guys to dig deep into themselves, allow themselves to hurt, allow themselves to heal, and also become part of a community that's also they know they can reach out and feel secure. There's a thing in the Navy, I don't know if you've ever been on a Navy ship. When you're on a ship,
Couple times.
everybody has to fight fires on the ship if it happens.
Right.
Otherwise,
Right.
your house sinks. There's a thing when you're manning a line or something, it's called oath, and that's for tugging on the rope. So someone's holding the rope that you're connected to while you're in fighting a fire. Oath stands for, OATH stands for, 1 tug, I'm okay. Number 2 tugs, advance the rope because I'm moving in. Number 3 tug, T, so OAT. And 3 tugs on the rope means take up the slack, I need to come back a little bit. And if I pull 4 times on the rope, that means help, yank me out of here. So we use the term oath with these groups of guys. Every now and then we'll check in with them and go, hey, give us an oath check or a line check. And guys will come back, I'm O, everything's good. Some guys come back with just an H, I'm hurting. And we contact them and say, hey, what's going on? Why have you withdrawn from us? And so to make this short story even longer, Man Camp opens that up for guys. Guys have come there and said, I didn't know what to expect out of this. Guys come and say, I'm not the kind of guy that shares. 5 minutes into the first introduction, these guys are pouring their hearts out because they see they're safe and they can do that.
Wow.
And then we offer them resources and other communities to belong to.
That's awesome. You know, you were sharing about fighting fires on naval vessels. If you ever get a chance, go back and watch Bob Sandlin, an interview I did with Bob Sandlin. He was a retired commander, fighter pilot.
Yeah.
He was on the USS Forrestal.
Don't tell, oh my God. Him and John McCain, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, you know, his wife didn't know for a week whether he was alive or dead. She heard about the fire and the accident in a grocery store line, you know, with all of her kids.
Yep.
And, you know, he shared his stories about fighting fires and lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where one fire controller was spraying water on the fire. The other side of the ship was spraying foam, and the foam would have worked to retard the fire.
But they're rinsing the foam away.
But they were rinsing the foam away. And so it changed the way that, you know, sailors would fight fires from there forward.
Right.
And, you know, you brought a piece that he didn't bring up that I think is great. And it's a great acronym that can be used, you know, in helping people heal or quench those fires that's tormenting them.
Good analogy,
internally.
Man.
So
you just swung right into that analogy, didn't you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I get a chance to listen a little bit and then can get back. But so if you can, without disclosing people and their stories too much. Can you give me some wins that you've seen from folks who have gone through man camp?
I can tell you the very first man camp, the win. It's more than anything I could ever imagine. So one of the guys that we have in our group is a minister. And he's also a motivational speaker. That's what his business is. And his name's Roshan. And the last day of that man camp, like I said, it was 20-something degrees up there, 5 inches of snow. It was freezing. There was a nice creek running along there. And we got a buddy, and I'll say his name. Nick will allow, if Nick's watching this, say, God bless you, Nick, because I'm talking about you. Nick was struggling with stuff, and he came to this man camp. He had just stopped drinking. Several years alcoholic. He realized that he just quit drinking. And he came there for something. He was my buddy Bill's, I think he's his nephew. Or cousin, one of the two. Get that, my Alzheimer's kicks in every now and then. But so Nick, we're there, and things just spontaneously happen. One of the guys in our group, Ryan, is a DJ, plus he's also a musician and teaches and piano. And he got up one day, we're doing this final thing, we're writing letters to ourselves, the final day in the morning on Sunday, and there's an old piano in this little, we're in like this old Bible camp, so they got a piano and a rec room and everything. So Ryan just starts playing. I don't know if you heard the song. What's it called? It's by Corey. It's by Corey. It's like.
Is it Corey Asbury?
Yeah. The 99. Leave the 99 and knock
Reckless
down.
Love.
Reckless Love.
Yeah.
Ryan starts playing Reckless Love, and we're just sitting there writing letters, and it just turns into, it's not we're not a church, but it's the best church I've ever been to. It's it starts happening, and Ryan just playing it and singing, and all of a sudden we get in the moment. Guys are really just getting into it. Nick's sitting there, and at that moment I can see him. He's amped up, and he just says to Bill, "Hey, I want to get baptized."
Oh wow.
And Bill comes to me and goes, "Hey, we got to get Sean had already left. He was driving back. He's been gone 20 minutes. Bill calls him, you got to get back here. We need you to baptize someone." Rashawn turns around, comes back. We get out there, and I'm talking to Bill, and I look at Nick. I said, "Nick, would you mind? I was Catholic my whole life, done the whole thing, but I've never been baptized as an adult." And I said, "Would you mind if I got baptized too?" So the win was me and Nick went together. Bill and Rashawn got in the water. The water's flowing. It's about 1.5 feet deep. We're standing in this freezing water. It's 20-something degrees, and those two baptized us one after another.
Wow.
And now Nick, I just on a call with him this morning. You guys are absolutely amazing. We had a group of men we do a call every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He's so powerful in his thought process that he's so beyond it, and he's got so much to pass on to other guys. He'll be at man camp with us again as a cadre.
Wow.
So
you do a call. Is this call with folks that have gone through man camp?
Some of them were in man camp, and other guys, it's called Rashawn, my friend, Rashawn Dozier. Shout out to him if you don't mind. Got to get him to come and talk to you too.
Any kin to DJ Dozier?
Don't know who
he
that is.
He was a great football player at Penn State.
Are there great football players at Penn State?
I figured with a Michigan guy, there's something in there.
No, but some of the guys on the call, half of them have been there to man camp, other ones, and this is another thing, it's called Mindset Architect that Rashawn does, and we just get together and we are on those calls Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Same concept, open up, be transparent, and just feel safe that you can do anything.
Wow. So the inspiration of man camp, with you and Bill, was that personal things that were going on in your life that you're like, man, if I'm struggling with this, there's probably other guys. How did it really go deep with me on how it came about?
No, it came from Bill, really what it came from, and he pulled me into it. And but he had gone through, can you imagine 6 years with DevGru as a corpsman. He wasn't a SEAL, but he's support. And
right.
they accepted him like he was one of them in his squadron and everything because he was just so good. And
you enter that circle of trust.
You got to prove yourself.
And you've proved yourself.
And they depended on him.
Yeah.
Bill had, after he retired, of course, a couple years later, went through a period where he, just like a lot of us do, where there's something wrong and we know we need help, but we don't know what's wrong and we don't know what the help is. And he joined a church and he's like, I go to these men's groups and it's like pancake breakfast and we're going to read a little scripture and, it's very vanilla.
Yeah.
And that's not us. People
It was
that
more of a social club setting, not a.
And the women's groups
Yeah.
are, you say, hey, in a church, a women's groups, hey, we need something done. They'll get together and they'll earn in an afternoon $500 to pay for something. Men will get together and get nothing done, and then they get there and they're like, oh, I have to be so nice and, and have to do this. And I can't open up about the fact that I'm thinking about cheating on my wife or I'm looking at porn on a daily basis or, I'm drinking, I go to my car at lunch and drink a bottle of vodka to get through the day. They won't open up about that, but it's all like, oh, God bless you, God bless, and the Bill's like, this is not what I need. What I need is some strength, I need some in-your-face, the stuff that we did in the military. I need to feel like a man, and I need to be able to be with other men and be able to open up and feel, like I said, feel safe to do that and be authentic and be transparent and be present. And when he said that, the one thing that we talk about all the time is presence. When we're not present, we're thinking about whatever's coming up next or whatever, and you're not there in the moment. And that's one thing that rings with me. And Bill said that. He said, we got to make something like that. And I think we did. And I think honestly, we've had about 40 or 50 guys, 60 guys go through 4 or 5 iterations now. But I think in the near future, this is going to be hundreds at a time.
You know what I've found in podcasts? You're talking about being present. I have found that when I throw this headset on, and set in this mic where I hear this, baritone voice back and forth usually, and we had some females on our show as well, but it really, for whatever reason, gives me the ability to really dial in and focus on you. When I take the headset off and we're still talking, but
Everything
now I
else comes
hear
in.
everything else and and I'm like a squirrel, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, there's enough. But podcasts has been really great for me to be able just to listen and listen intently. And then just because I'm curious about what you have going on in your life, ask questions that lead. So maybe there's something to this where you can get a couple guys in a room that just want to talk and get
That's
it
a
out on the
great
table.
idea.
Throw the headset on and just engage.
And you kind of got it blackened out. The lights are on.
Yeah.
Everything else is disappearing. Everything is going around in the background. You don't see it. It's just me and you. So I think that's it. You know what? I'm gonna steal that and make it into something, and then I'll give you credit for it later on. But
I don't even need credit. If it helps someone,
yeah,
especially our brothers and fellow veterans that have 20 years, folks. These are some people that have come back with some rough stuff.
Yeah.
And, not to diminish, our Vietnam veterans, our Korean veterans. I was talking to a buddy the other night, and I lost an uncle in Korea. He was a first lieutenant in the Army. And crossing the Yellow River with prisoners of war, was ambushed in a machine gun fire.
Wow.
And my grandmother had a premonition and saw him fall, saw him die. And, I think it just mentally prepared her for that 3 days later.
Yeah.
The knock on the door and, seeing the warrant officer and supporting guys come up, and the chaplain. And that had a huge impact on my father.
Yeah.
At 17 years old when he lost his brother. But, all of that to say is that when you have an opportunity to just get one-on-one or just get silent with another human being and just talk through, I call it the head trash.
Yeah.
Right? So the things that's going on inside your head that's not necessarily true, but it feels true.
Yeah.
And the lies that we end up telling ourselves, or the lies that we believe from past experiences or family members or, friends or acquaintances, that we fall into a darkness of other people's truth, not really the way God sees us.
Right.
So Man Camp sounds like it's a real awesome experience, and I'm gonna have to take you up on that.
I was going to just ask you that. When are you coming to the next one? And then We'll get that out to you. One other thing you just said, though,
Yeah.
you get trapped into all the negative stuff. You're like, oh, I'm trapped in all the stuff that's happening. You
Yeah.
get that in your mind and start circling around. You also get trapped in your successes because you think that if you had success with something in the past, you can use that same tract
Yeah.
to have success again. And so many people fall into that where it's like, well, it worked for me back then. I can do this again. Well, it's a whole different scenario now. And we talk about that too. You might have had success in this area, but you're different than you were 5 years ago. You're different than you were yesterday. You're different.
That is a great point.
So
Yeah.
you have to also look at that as I can learn from that, but that doesn't necessarily mean I take all the same steps.
Right.
So we work on that too. So, I mean, we've all been there. So
Yeah. To that point, I can share with you, and I've shared with my audience in the past, I had some experiences where I had uber success in the financial business. And then I burned out. I didn't have a good mentor. I didn't have a person to talk to really share how I was feeling about business to get me back on path. And I didn't have an accountability partner.
Right.
And I wasn't sharing things with my wife that was going on in business. And, so that just had a trickle-down effect of just little thing on top of little thing compounded into one big thing. And the one big thing that I identified with was my money and my success, previous success. And when that got stripped away for a little while, it was, like my whole identity went away.
They ripped that scab off you, and now it's just an open wound, right?
Yeah, and then I had the ideas and the thoughts of even taking a long walk on a short pier, where I just really had to come to grips with, man, am I really at this point where I'm that lost, that deep in self-pity, that I didn't see a way out. But it took some good men, some strong counseling, and a loving wife, and more importantly,
Amen.
The sovereign God that I
Yes.
serve was like, hey, I still got you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So-
It's, and you bring up a couple things there. You brought up, compadres that you have.
Yeah.
People you get that got your back, got your six. They're checking everything. You've got a wife that supports you, family,
Yeah.
and then overall, And I didn't know this relationship. My relationship with God is personal. I mean, super personal. And I didn't understand my relationship with God until I had my own children, because then I realized my kids could do, even if they did the worst thing, murdered somebody, I would still love them and still try to have the best for them. I didn't realize how that worked until I had my kids, and now that's what my life feels like all the time now. I screw up all the time.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest hypocrite because I talk a good game, but then I go screw things up. But I know that he'll always bring me back to him. So,
But just being transparent about that
Yeah.
and just saying, hey, I still screw up,
yeah.
is so helpful to other people who feel like, man, no,
Oh, your life's that guy's
Yeah.
life is perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, this social media shows it all the time. But
Yeah, the perfect side of life, the 1/10 of a second it took you to take that picture.
yeah, if that, and then you see behind him, and you got your son's back there doing heroin or whatever. And I know that's long, but I mean it's a true thing.
That's reality for
A
many,
lot of
many
people.
people, unfortunately.
You brought up one thing. I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. My wife, we talked about this. My wife's been through the ringer with health and her whole life. My wife is Paula, and she's diabetic.
Shout out to Paula. That's my mother-in-law's name.
Right on.
Great woman.
Right on. So it's a good, strong name, right?
Yeah.
But Paula's been through a lot, and I have to talk about her and my kids because she stood by me through multiple deployments. Not knowing. I'm in Afghanistan. There's a helicopter crash. She knows that people died. I'm on the. They go to River City where they shut down all communication, and you can't talk to anybody because they have to do that. So she doesn't know if I'm dead or alive, or I'd be on the call with her, and all of a sudden I got to take off. There's missiles incoming, and doesn't know what the outcome is. But she stuck by me, and my kids stuck by me, and they dealt with that. And there's one story. I'm in Afghanistan, and we live on Cherry Point, North Carolina, the air station, and she goes out to the grocery store with my young daughter at the time. I think my daughter was maybe, 8 or something at the time, not sure. And she comes home and pulls up in the driveway, and there's 2 guys in dress blues standing at my door.
Oh boy.
But they're 2 of my friends, a master chief and a senior chief. They're friends of mine. Just coming to check on Paula on a Friday afternoon, and on Fridays, you wear your good uniform, not
Yeah.
just the combat uniform, the khaki camis.
Yeah.
She can't get out of the car. She's like, "Oh my God, this is it." And she tells me this story, and it's just my friend Glenn and Bill, another Bill, nicely, that a friend of mine. They were just there to check on her. They didn't realize what they had presented. And so I say that story to say, on top of everything my wife's had to deal with in her health and all over the years, died at least 4 times. My kids have seen it happen, On top of all that, she still persevered through everything that was going on with me. And now she's persevering with me, not in the military anymore. And our daughter's getting ready to leave for college, and my son's out in San Diego now, so we're going to be empty nesters. And now we have to now figure out what it is we're going to do. We've been married 31 years, and what's that going to look like now? And
She's got to court you all over again.
or she doesn't, or she's got to push me off. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. I just want to be with her.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that is. And I struggle with that all the time. We're getting older, and, intimacy is not there anymore in all forms. We don't hold hands anymore. She's been through so much. Her skin hurts. If I touch her, it hurts her. I have to, but if Paula watches this, and I don't know if she will, and she's heard me say this, but I really want her to know this, that I will absolutely love you, Paula, fully, until the day I die, no matter what we go through.
That's beautiful.
Not only that, because what you've done for me and what you continue to do for me and stretch me and make me grow and, challenge me the way you challenge me to be better and also be, somebody that you needed to be secure and someone you can count on in the moment, whatever that moment is. I'm going to do my best to be that. And there's nothing that we're not going to, we're not going to fail in anything. So I love you, babe.
And there's cutting some onions in here. I think Jordan's cutting onions
I
for
know.
lunch
I wish
today.
you
So
didn't tell me she was going to do that.
man, that was powerful. Thank you for sharing. And Paula's going to watch this.
Don't take that as if I'm a great husband, because
No, you're great. You are a great husband.
But Paula will get out here and go, "That guy's an idiot." So that's where I say the hypocrisy comes in. I talk a great game, but man, I fail every single day with her.
Well, I can empathize with that. 30 years, Kathleen and I have been married.
Right on.
And 5 kids. Fortunate to have 5 beautiful grandchildren, and I think all of them's on the wall
5.
except little Stevie Rose. I don't see. We got to get a picture. Stevie was in the womb when this. That's right. But man, what a gift, and Paula's your gift from God, and Kathleen's my gift from God, and
It's anointing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was anointed. It had to be.
yeah, that's awesome. With thanks for taking that moment to share your feelings with Paula and the rest of us. It was
Thanks
pretty
for letting me
cool,
do it. But let me
pretty
also say
special.
to my son Tyler, who's over the last year of getting clean and sober and getting healthy mentally, has taught me more in the last year than I've learned my whole life. And my daughter Kari, getting ready to graduate high school and go on to college. She's going to Flagler College in Florida.
good for her. And good for your son for sobriety.
He's a warrior, man.
Yeah.
Doesn't even know he's a warrior, but he's a warrior.
Yeah.
But those 2 kids and my wife, as we talked out here before we got on the podcast, I'd like to take credit for any of that, but it's all grace. All grace.
There was an old evangelist, and I know this. My father was a Baptist minister, so I grew up in church all my life. And my sister said she's going to write a book one day about how to be a preacher's kid and still go to heaven. But I remember, I think it was John R. Rice was talking about life and the struggles of life. And what stuck out to me was this quote that he had. He said, "It's a battlefield, brother.
Yep.
Not a recreation room. It's a fight, not a game." And that has just stuck with me over the years, that anytime it gets tough or hard, I have to remind myself of that
Yeah.
it's a battlefield. And it's not all fun and games. There's moments, but most of the time you're fighting for your life or your family's life in some.
And not just in this
form.
world, but in unseen things too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to realize that as a man, you're responsible for that for your family.
Yeah.
And I don't care. Women will say, "Well, that's arrogant, and egotistical." Well, you can say it all you want. That's how you feel. God bless you. That's your feeling and everything. But to me, it's a man's responsibility to take care of their family through those battles in this world and in the unseen world.
Yeah.
You have to do it. And there's a saying that's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, right?
That's right.
So
That's awesome. When you go to man camp and you're spending time with these guys, the guys that are the newbies, the rookies, the recruits,
the FNGs,
what is FNGs?
F and new guys. Yeah. The Vietnam vets will appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I've been known to swear a little bit on my podcast, so that Marine, the F bombs get embedded.
Well, that's a verb. It's a noun. It's an adverb, adjective. You can use it in a sentence, all 5 words.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So when they go in, I mean, for a guy who's, I'll say it like this, a guy who's churched, who's grown up in, some religious form or fashion, maybe can pick up with what we're talking about. When you have a guy that's never had any of those experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, and you bring them into an environment and you ask them to, go deep spiritually, what's that like?
What I've found is, first of all, we don't force it on anybody. In man camp, we pray together and everything, but we also let people know this is not. We're not here to preach God to you. Although all of us that are there are Christians, and we know that we have to be disciples. We have to bring people to God, but we're not there to force it on you. We're there to say, hey, just open up. And what the biggest thing for them is, most people come in there and they're like I said, I'm not going to share. I'm not the kind of guy that shares. But when they feel safe, when they see people that they look up to, people that they know are like, if I look at Bill, and this guy's a warrior, I know what he's been through, and then I see him opening up about his kids, and then his own son opens up during his talk about how he's actually his stepson, how he thinks you're my dad. You're the only dad that I'll ever, and you see that. So it's the actions and the example that we set. And then when you're in that, there's that, it's almost like an experiment. When in all experiments, when you are thinking that something's going to happen that way, that's the way the experiment's going to go. I forget what it's called, the slit theory or something like that. Whatever slit you're looking through, that's what's going to happen. People will be it's just going to happen. You're going to feel comfortable saying, I need to open up. And the one thing that I will say that I've learned over the last couple of years is that for anyone that's looking at it, there's something they know that's missing. They're struggling. They're doing everything else right, but there's something missing. The moment that I remember driving across the H-1 freeway in Hawaii, driving from Kaneohe Bay to Pearl Harbor, and my son was going through all his problems, and I had gone probably 15 times to go find him in Waikiki, and thinking, is this the time I find him dead and overdosed someplace? And my wife had just gone through that in 2014, where she almost got killed at the hospital. And I'm in a state of nervous breakdown almost because of my PTSD and also the stress of being a command master chief. And I remember driving thinking, up on the H-1 freeway, it's 200 and something feet to the jungle floor. And I go, man, if I just turned 5 degrees, I could drive right off and this would all be over. But then I also remember saying at that point, going, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I just, in that moment, said, God, you got this. It's all yours, and it's not mine anymore. So if people, the question you're asking me, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but what I'm going to tell people that are not churched up or not spiritual or don't have a relationship with God, I can tell you from my own experience that when I let go and let God do it, and I know that sounds easy, but I've been through a lot of stuff, and when I finally stopped thinking that I had control over anything, the only thing I have control over is my attitude towards things and my perception of how things are going to be, and I let Him have it. You heard that song, Jesus Take the Wheel. Hey, it's real. I don't. People can. If you're going to deny God, you also have the opportunity to accept them.
Sure.
There's two sides of that coin.
Right.
So if you're going to deny them, tell me what would happen if you accept them. So that's the only answer I give. I can just say anyone coming into that.
Yeah.
If you're not coming up there for spiritual stuff, fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're coming up there to get healthy because we want you to be the best version of yourself every time you show up. And not only the best version, but a better version than the guy that showed up last time.
When a guy, thanks for sharing that. When someone goes to man camp, are they coming through an invite? Are they coming through a friend? How are they finding you?
However, we don't care how they come. A lot of times so far it's been invites and referrals and stuff, but we need to get it out there. We're at the point now we're getting it out there to people. This is one avenue, obviously.
Yeah.
Get it out to people to say, you can just come, show up, sign up. And
How do they do that? I'd love
okay,
to share
and I
with
didn't
people.
write it down, but Jordan's going to put this out there when she edits this. There's the Man Up Project, and Jordan, I'll get you that. I'm sorry I didn't write it down, but we'll make sure that it gets put onto the final version so that they can go and look it up. And you get on and sign up. And when you go to Man Camp, there's a price because we have to cover stuff. But I will tell you what, you will walk out of there, first of all, with about $200 worth of swag, nice stuff, shirts, bags. And on top of that, you'll have camping for 4 days. Plus, we have a world-class chef, Brian Real, who's also another man developer. He's just an incredible mind guru. And plus, he's owned, I think, 10 or 15 restaurants in the Boston area. He comes and cooks all our meals for us. We have world-class weapons instructors who, one of our guys that comes out there to teach was the first SWAT on scene of the Virginia Tech sniper, guy shooter, and he's taught. I mean, so we have these things you're going to walk away with. Then on top of that, you're walking away with a group of guys that are.
Yeah.
So how do they get on it? We'll get the web page out there. It's themanupproject.com. I think it is right now. Don't hold me to that. I'll get it to Jordan, and we'll. Okay. Sorry that I didn't write that down.
No, it's all good. Nothing like being put on the spot on the podcast and what.
Well, but the good thing you have people that edit things and can fix it,
That's right. So, how often do you do these?
We're at about 5 to 7 months now. Every 5 to 7 months. We'd like to do it quarterly or even at least 10 months out of the year in the future, but we've got to develop this to a...
You go to the same place?
We have been this is the fourth time, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is number 4 we've done, and we've done 3 of them at this place. But we're actually in the process also of looking for land that we can use. And so if anyone's watching and says, hey, I got the perfect place for you, that you can set up a small arms range, and plus you can do all this other stuff and have bonfires and all that and camp out there. If anyone people are always looking, what can I donate to this stuff?
Are you chartered or set up as a 501c3?
Not yet, but that's our next. We're working on that now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've got my lawyer that I deal with has sent us some good information, and we're going to get that all covered too. So
good for you guys. Yeah. And how long is it?
Right now it's so we get there Thursday. We do Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday about half the day. Leave there. Usually take off from there by no later than 2 p.m.
And right now the location is where do you?
Goshen, Virginia. It's a place called Grace Bible Camp that we linked up with these guys. They have kids camp and everything. So they got all the activities and stuff there. And we just they didn't have a gun range. We built our own, put it up there. But they allowed us to do it, and plus we try to help them when we're there, do some type of project at their camp to help them. Yeah. So so that's
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So 3 days, and the takeaway that the feedback you're getting from guys that have gone. Can you share a few of those with me?
Well, the first one I'll tell you is when a guy that just realized he's an alcoholic and quits drinking, and all of a sudden gets baptized, and that's the first takeaway. There's something that happens there. The other thing is we have guys that we stay connected to on these phone calls and give them resources. The takeaway from it is whatever you will find, if you don't find what you're looking for to correct something that you're doing wrong, or some things that are just ingrained, and you have these ruts that you get in. We can help you to build, instead of, you get stuck in a rut, and if anyone's grown up in the Midwest and the North, when you're driving on the roads, you're stuck in a rut in the snow. You can't get out of it. But we can help you dig trenches below that rut to get out of it. We can give you resources. We can connect you with guys that have already been through a lot of the stuff you've been through and can guide you through that. If you don't get all that, at least you'll get the seed planted, and then that seed will grow, and eventually you'll find what you're looking for. And we don't care if it's with us or not. We don't care where you find what you're looking for, as long as you start looking for it.
Do you have like an exercise where you have guys journal, or?
It's all part of it, yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Journaling is one of the things we leave there with you. We give them an actual man camp journal book to take with them and to keep while they're there and keep notes. And we do a lot of writing. We also talk about meditation. All of us that have been through a lot of stuff find that meditation helps ground us back into things. We connect, we're Christian. Me and Bill are Christians, and a bunch of us are Christians too, but we also connect to the chakras, because everything's connected, So we work with people like that. We get them the resources that get them changing their trajectory
mentally,
is all it is. And if we can't help them mentally, just at least move in that direction.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. So obviously, as faith-based guys, we would say Scripture is a great place to go,
right,
read and excuse me, resource to help. Are there any other books out there you're reading right now? Are there any other content that you've seen in the marketplace, maybe by some of your guests, or maybe something even you guys have written? What are you reading? What would you share with people to?
Right now
to
we're
use?
reading. We're in this other group I'm in. We're reading the this is the 56-year-old head injury, multiple combat tour guy.
The great thing about the podcast is we can remember and we put it on the site. So we'll go at this point.
Yeah, I'll find it, but it's
Chris couldn't remember, but here's the book.
The book is God. It's such a good book. It's so in your face too. It's something. It's not coming to me. Sorry, Jordan. We'll get back to. That means I just get to talk to Jordan again later.
Yeah. Right.
But there's also there's a book called. Wow, they're all slipping my mind. Well, The Dream Giver is one that I'll always tell people to read. The Dream Giver is a great book. There's a book about Normal, who's a nobody from. Why am I slipping on this? It's like my favorite book.
Sounds like two I need to read then.
Well, you definitely. I'll get the books to you, but and I'm writing a book right now too, so I'm hoping to get that done. But I've gotten stuck into that thing where I don't believe I'm an author, and I failed again, and I stopped for months, and that whole thing we all go through. But no, there's so many things out there. I would say start with look into Scripture if you've never looked in it. People go in there and go, I can't read Scripture because it's all thee and thou, and there's versions you can read. And the other thing I'd say, people go, well, Jesus was just a soft guy that gave it. No, he was a warrior, man. He used to battle with the Sadducees and the Pharisees every time and just poke them and and then not only that, he tore apart the temple when there were money changers in there. And, he was a warrior, man. I mean, everyone talks about just this good, smiling, good Jesus, man, but
He was kind of like walking tall. That may not make a lot of sense to our younger audience out there,
but the other side of that is, he's a servant leader, and he's always serving people. But even he himself, and this is another plug for Man Camp, went off into the wilderness to meditate, speak to God, and get right. And not only that, but battle the devil out there, in the wilderness. So there's so many analogies that I could throw out there, but it's driving me crazy that I can't remember the books, but I'll get them back to you. I'll give you a couple that I read.
So do you think that being in the elements helps in any way with getting mentally strong?
I think the minute I'll tell you what, the minute I pull up into that site and get there, it feels like someone opened up steam valves. It just leaves me. And I'm just, now there's nothing there holding me. I'm not thinking about my family. I'm not thinking about problems. I'm not thinking about finances. I'm thinking about what I'm going to give and get while I'm here. And just, it flays you open. I think being out in the wilderness, definitely helps it. We're Wild at Heart is the book I was
Wild
thinking
at
about.
Heart, yeah.
You probably read that. Well, that's a great
Yeah.
book. But you're wild. You got to get out there. Men are wild. And when I say men, women always, a lot of women get upset. They're like, well, why don't you talk about women? Because I'm talking about men right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Mother's Day is coming up. I'll talk about you there. And,
Right.
But men are born, okay.
It's innate.
Adam was made outside the garden, in the wild, in the wilderness. Eve was made in the garden. Okay, there's a difference between men and women.
Yeah.
So, and people are probably going, what is he talking about now? Well, that's another biblical thing if you read into it. So, men are supposed to be, I don't want to just say wild, but wild in a way that they're out there and just feeling part, digging in the soil. I feel best when I'm building something or planting something or, just guys, if you're listening to this, think about it for a second. When do you feel best when you're doing a spreadsheet, or do you feel best when you're, hitting a softball or, trekking through the woods with your bow on your back or fishing or cutting down a tree? When do you feel most alive?
Yeah.
So, does that answer your question?
That's a great question, and it's a great question to leave out there for our audience to ponder on. And so they can go to the Manpower.
No,
Man,
the Man Up Project.
the Man
There's
Up
several
Project.
of them out there, but I'll make sure I get the
Man
one
Up
for us.
Project. I just wanted to make sure we can try to get people to you.
Yeah.
And we'll put all your contact info
Yeah, absolutely. And
on
they
the
can call me
site
too.
and on
yeah.
YouTube as well, so
Yeah.
folks can get hold of you. Hey, thank you so much for spending an hour with me today. It goes fast, doesn't it?
It really does. I could stay here all day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll have you back. How about that?
I would love to
And
come
maybe
back.
bring one of your guests back who've experienced Man Up and can go through that process with us here live and share what they've
I would love that.
experienced.
That's great.
So
Kenny, I appreciate it, man.
thank you, Chris. Go have a great day.
I'm going to. Wow,
That was
that was
fun.
good, man.